Hey everybody, Queen of Space from Colony Drop Cosplay, coming at you with a very special series of videos. Today I'm hanging out at Teehee Party in the Hill Country Galleria in Big Caves, Texas. As you can see, it's really cute in here. But I want to come at you guys today and talk about summer convention survival, and really convention survival as a whole. I've been going to anime conventions for almost 22 years now, and I have to say I have learned a lot over the years, not just about cosplay or anything like that, but the actual logistics of getting to and from a convention and having a good time. So in this series of videos, I want to share with you guys some of my tips and tricks for how to plan to have your best weekend ever at an anime convention. So I think the most important thing to do to begin is to make a plan. As soon as you've decided you're going to attend a specific convention, start planning right away. And I feel that way about any kind of trip. Even if it's local, it's important to plan ahead. The best way to deal with pre-con stress is to have a plan. Think about early, not only your badge for the convention, but where you're going to stay and how you're going to get there. Go ahead and pre-book your hotel room early, even if you're not sure you're going to need it. You can almost always cancel your booking up to 24 hours in advance without any penalty. Sometimes it's 48 hours. You'll need to look at your hotel information, but if you can book it early without paying, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and hold that room. You can always cancel it later if you don't need it, or you can trade it off to a friend or something like that. I do that very early. I usually book all my hotel rooms. I sit down and I book them all for the year, all at the same time if I can. It's also important to think about parking at the venue. Often at hotels, overnight parking can be upwards of $30 per night. That's almost $100 in parking by the end of the weekend. So think about parking ahead of time. Try to research lots in the area, talk to local people. Sometimes I even just go off and park in a neighborhood and take a lift back to the venue. If you can leave your car at a friend's house in the city, that also works as well, just to save you on parking, especially considering for most of us, once we're parked for the weekend, we don't need our cars at all. Once you have all of that figured out, you know where you're going to stay and where you're going to put your car, do think about the sleeping arrangements of your room. It is very common, especially with young congoers, to cram their rooms. And don't get me wrong, I've totally slept in a bathtub before with, 9 other people in the same room. But no matter how many people are in your room, it's important to discuss who's going to sleep where ahead of time, so that when you get to the hotel, there's no fuss, and that the people who will not be sleeping in beds can plan ahead and have the right things with them. Because there's nothing worse than arriving and then being told you're going to sleep on the floor and having no blankets or pillows or anything to sleep on. I've been there as well and spent all night shivering, and it wasn't very fun. So do think about your sleeping arrangements early on. Also, as soon as you know that you're going to go, start to think about your cosplay lineup. What cosplays are you going to bring for this convention? I like to create lists in my computer for each one of my costumes with all of the separate pieces in a list. And when I go to a con, I compile all these lists into one checklist and I print it out. That way, every costume has its own individual list of all the items I need, and I can make sure that all the items are there and I don't forget anything. I always do what's follow Twilight Sparkle and double check the checklist. So even when I think I have everything, I simply check it off. And then before we leave for the con, we check it all one more time and we scratch it out. That way we can be sure of what's left, or what we might have forgotten. Transporting wigs, especially styled wigs, can be extremely difficult. I like to use cat litter buckets. Hopefully a picture will be right here. With lids. These are great because they're big enough to hold the entire wig head with the styled wig and put the lid on top. They're stackable and they have handles. In this way, you can carry like 6 wigs at a time by just simply threading them onto your arms and then grabbing something else. It makes it way easier to transport them, and it also keeps them protected from getting squashed while transporting. A big fan of these. If you don't have a cat, or ask around. People with cats, we go through a lot of cat litter. So they're easy to get your hands on. When I transport my cosplay, I try to use garment bags, whether they're homemade garment bags or they're store-bought garment bags. Either can work. It's nice to put each one in its own, or each group of costumes into its own. Just makes it really easy to transport. You also don't have to worry about getting dirty brushing against your car, or when the bellhop tapes your things up, or anything like that. Your costumes are safe and they're wrapped up and they're protected while they're being transported. When they're in that hung up position too, they're less likely to get as wrinkled in traveling. Also, pack your props properly and think about how you're going to pack your props while you are building them. I have seen people create very large props and then day of the con can't figure out how to get them in their car. So take that into account. How are you going to transport this? How is it going to ride in your vehicle? And what can you do to make sure that it is safe? For my Harpoon cannon, it breaks down into 3 pieces and we put it into a military duffel bag and it transports very well. That way it's protected and it's contained. Whatever you need to do to protect and contain your props, whether it be as simple as putting trash bags over it, wrapping it in fabric, or simply disassembling it and putting it inside of a suitcase if you can. But make sure that they're packed properly so you don't have to worry about them getting damaged in transport. Start packing early. Don't wait to the last minute. Don't put it off to the last day, even with your personal items. Try to pack your bag a week in advance. And as I said before, always double check the checklist. Once you're at the con, it's inevitable you're going to forget something, but do your best to make sure that you got all the really, really important things in your bag. When we're talking about packing, it's always important to be prepared for all contingencies. Murphy's a mean guy and his laws are not always kind to us, especially at cons. The worst that can happen is probably going to happen eventually. Going for 22 years, I've seen all kinds of things happen. So I always recommend to, just like the Girl Scouts, always be prepared. I always carry a small first aid or medical kit in my bag in my hotel room, and this is going to have things like band-aids, gauze, medical tape for blisters and small injuries, painkillers like Tylenol or aspirin, Midol, allergy medication. This can both help with sleeping and with a sudden allergy attack. Feminine care products, even if you don't necessarily need them, you just never know whose aunt might come visiting this weekend unexpectedly. I like to bring an ice pack with me, the blue gel ones, and then you can throw it in the freezer when you get to your hotel room if they have one, or put it on ice. This can also just be nice to cool down when it's really hot, or if someone twists an ankle, their feet are swollen from their shoes, it can be nice to have that ice pack there to sort of cool off at the end of the day. Eye drops and contact solution is really important. Again, even if you don't use it, I still carry it because I have friends that I cosplay with that wear contacts and they need these things, and they can sometimes be easily forgotten, but they are essential to having a good weekend and remaining clean. Carry a small cosplay repair kit that's relevant to your costume. This can change depending on what kind of costume you're wearing and what kind of things are involved. My kit has all the basic sewing, leather, fixing supplies, different kinds of glue, just anything you might possibly need to put your costume back together. This is something I think about while I'm working on the costume. I'll put the extra thread or an extra button from the cosplay into the kit so that no matter what, I've got that handled. Because I've totally had to stand in the hallway and have someone sew a button back on me before. It's totally happened. If you're sharing a room with a lot of people, especially if it's not just you and one friend or you and your significant other, label all of your stuff. Label your makeup palettes, put your name on things, or put stickers to denote what's yours, because inevitably things are going to get jumbled together, people are going to share. It's just good to have a label on things so that you know whose is whose, especially when things are getting moved around a lot. On this note, one of the things I have learned over the years is it's really hard to know whose towel is whose in the bathroom when you have 4 to 6 people in a hotel room together and you're all using the white bathroom towels. So my team has devised a plan where we take wooden clothespins and we have spray painted them each a different color and labeled each with the person's name. We take these clothespins and we stick them on our towels at the beginning of the weekend. So even though they're all kind of moving around and hanging up in different places and sometimes falling down, they always have those clothespins on them. So you always know whose is whose. So you never accidentally wipe your face with your friend's butt, because that's just not fun. So that's a really great inexpensive way. And at the end of the weekend, you just take the clothespins off, you put them back in your cosplay kit. They're good for the next convention. And if you accidentally forget one, those wooden clothespins are very inexpensive. You can get a whole pack of 100 at the dollar store. And you can really paint them with just about anything or just write names on them, just so that they can denote whose is whose. You can also use this on anything else that might be like that you're just like, whose is this? You can put a clothespin with a color on it. And that really, really helps keep things together. One of the biggest questions that people were asking me were ways to deal with pre-con stress. For a lot of people, an anime convention weekend is the highlight of their year, if not their lives or decade, and everyone wants to have a really good time. Because of that, emotions run very strongly, and stressing out before a con is almost a glorified part of it, and I really feel like it shouldn't be. Far too often I feel like we glorify ourselves and other people who spend all night sewing to get something done, and I've done it, I'm guilty, to get something done in time for a con, when in reality we're actually doing ourselves a great harm. And so nowadays I try to preach a different approach when it comes to especially cosplay related and pre-con stress. If your costume isn't done, it's probably not going to be done. There's always another convention, whether it be next year or further down the line or in a couple of months. There's so many cons now that there's always going to be another convention. And it's okay to push a costume off. I have done it many, many times, and I've always been happier when I have pushed it off and taken the time to get it right. Don't harm yourself over trying to finish a cosplay. It's not worth your mental anxiety. It's not worth the physical stress. I've stressed so much over cosplay that I've broken out in hives right before a con. It's not good for me, it's not good for you, it's not good for any of us. So if your costume isn't going to be done, it's okay. You're not a quitter, you're not defeated. It's all right to say, you know, I need to save my own energy to have a good weekend this weekend, and that's okay. If it's not done, just leave it at home. Just let it go. It's okay, we can finish it next time. Any energy that you use extra before the con weekend, you're gonna find that energy is lacking come Saturday night. So you kind of have to have a trade-off. If you decide to sleep well, put off the stress, and decide that the costume can wait till next time and sleep more, you're gonna have way more energy come Saturday night when your friends want to hang out and go to karaoke and it's already 1:30 in the morning. Take time before the con to relax, and this goes into what I'm saying about the costume. Like, if it's not done, just put it to the side and say, you know what, I'm gonna spend the rest of the evening just relaxing. I like to take a hot bath, do a face mask, get my beauty regimen all in order before the con so I'm looking like as perfect as I can and feeling my best. Whatever it is that you need to do to relax, try to do that and take some time for yourself. But at the same time, don't leave anything for the morning of. A lot of people will be like, oh, well, the morning of, I'll grab this stuff and that stuff and we'll hit Walmart and then we'll do this and then we'll do that and then we'll get to the con. Inevitably, you think that's going to take an hour, and it doesn't. It takes like 5, and then you're not at the con until like 5 in the afternoon, and you're super stressed out, and it's hot, and there's traffic. Try not to leave anything for the day of, like aside from a quick stop at Buc-ee's on the road or whatever. It just adds more stress to the whole morning and adds this whole other layer of things you need to do and be worried about when you should just be ready to have a really great, relaxing, chill, fun weekend with your friends. The more you sleep before the con, the more stamina you'll have for the weekend. I know I said it before, but I can't say it enough. Take care of yourself before the con. Eat well the week before the con. Hydrate well the week before the con. Start a week, 2 weeks in advance. Make sure that you're getting enough water in your body. The better you treat your body before the weekend, the longer your body will last when you're pushing it to its limits on Saturday night. It's really important to take care of yourself. And so these are some of the first bits of help that I'm going to put out in the series as far as preparing for the convention weekend. These are just really basic things to help you get prepared, get you ready to go. In our next video, we're going to talk about being at the con. We're going to talk about eating at the con. We're going to talk about interacting, participating, and getting in there and getting involved with other people at the con. So if you guys have any questions regarding what I've shared today, please drop them in the comments below. If there's anything else about cosplay or anime convention attendance that you'd like to know about, go ahead and drop those as well. As I said, I've been attending cons for 22 years. I've pretty much run into every problem there's ever been. So if you have an issue or something that's making it hard for you, let me know. I'll see what I can do to help. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this first episode of Convention Season Survival and how to have your perfect weekend at an anime con. I can't wait to get back at you guys next time for parts 2 and 3. Thank you so much for joining me today on Colony Talks. As always, I'm the Queen of Space from Colony Drop, and thank you so much for being here. SIEG ZEON!